we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? 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 Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Good job.
Welcome. Welcome to everybody, even the choir. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Boulder. It's a very real thrill to be here, and it always will be helpful. Yeah, thank you. Normally I don't use microphones, but. And my name is Ray Knutson, and I am pleased to serve as your worship leader today. This is the point in the service where the worship leader always shares one thing I love about this church. And that can be the hardest part of this job, because there's so many things. How do I choose? So I'm going to do something a little different today and see how it works. I'm going to actually tell a story. It's a story about me, a very recent experience just a week ago, basically. It was very, truly powerful for me. And I want to use that story to convey how I feel about this church. So bear with me. It's a little different today. Last week, I just came back from a week in Phoenix, my childhood home. And I guess I was expecting to fit right in, to feel it was home. Driving around my old haunts and seeing all the places that I knew so well and probably hadn't changed that much. I wasn't totally sure that it would be completely comfortable. Of course, it's been a half century since I left. You would have thought they would, never mind. But I certainly thought I'd at least feel comfortable with my surroundings. What a shock. Of course, there were many, many new buildings. I had kind of expected that. And the little two-lane dirt road where we supposedly raced our cars on without telling our parents, had grown into a 4-lane highway. Bah. But some things were still there. For example, my original home was still there, and I loved it as much as ever. It was beautiful. But it was almost hidden by palm trees, flowers, plants that I didn't even recognize. Palm trees and flowers in the desert? This was supposed to be Arizona. Where should that have been? I don't know. Where the cactus should have been. And the majestic saguaro that used to dominate our house and always let me know that I had come home, it was gone. I don't know, 50 years, I guess. So then I visited my small church that had been the center of so much of my early life. My parents had been very involved with that church, and that was where I was first exposed to the larger world. Alas, no longer a church. The building was still there, but it had been turned into a combination community center and preschool. Now, those aren't bad things, but they're not my church. And just one small plaque on the wall to remember the wonderful minister that created it all and made all of us feel at home, children and as well as adults. So that was a little hard to take. True, they had replaced my little church with a beautiful, huge edifice, and it was great. I love it. But it just wasn't something I had connected with. So after a couple of days of driving around my schools, my childhood neighborhood, my church, I came to realize that this was no longer home to me. It had moved on, and I had moved on. Rather surprising, I guess, and sad. I left Arizona feeling I had lost something important, some important part of me, and I'd lost the sense of home. But on my way back to Boulder, my mood started to change. I started looking forward to coming there, coming here, to being in this church, to seeing all of you and being with people who share a common outlook on the world and who I care about and who at least seem to care about me. And then I realized I really do have a home. And it's right here with all of you. And that's definitely something I love about this church. I better get a drink of water here. So going back to the more traditional part of the program, if you're joining us online, please fill out a visitor form in the link in the description. We'd love to connect with you. To give you some idea of what we're all about, let me tell you what our mission is. We say that here, we connect bravely, deepen spiritually, embody justice, and always love. What we mean is that this community is inviting you into our shared time together. But it's also inviting you into a way of life, a way of being in the world that may transform you. Today is our annual Ask Me Anything service. And I got several. That means Reverend David will answer questions you have on the spot without seeing them in advance. Questions about the church, Unitarian Universalism, theology, life, himself, whatever's on your mind. Please write your question on the card on your seat. If not, there's plenty of extras here. And we'll collect them later in the service. Write your name, too. Reverend David won't share that name, but he does want to know who's who. I'm sorry. Okay. We had to reschedule or reformat our thing a little bit, so. At this point, I want to talk about the chalice lighting. The chalice is a symbol of our Unitarian Universalist tradition. It is a cup of life and a celebration, a flame of hope, a light to warm our souls and to guide us home. Will you join us in what will soon be the words of our shared mission? Go ahead. We gather in fellowship to connect bravely, deepen spiritually, and home in service, and home in eternity. I believe you're up now. Thank you for doing that.
Friends, we made it through the time change. Some of you not as well rested as usual. Rachel Naomi Remen, who's a doctor and an educator who sees the practice of medicine also as a spiritual practice and healing as more than just the body, says this: confronted with the impossible mystery of 1,000 unanswered, unanswerable questions of what it is to be alive, she says, perhaps the secret of living well is not in having all the answers, but pursuing unanswerable questions in good company. That's what we're here to do today. First of all, with dum-dums. Yes. Would you like a dum-dum? You should probably ask your grown-ups, but still. Here, can I... Do you mind, like, distributing? Okay, raise your hand if you want a dum-dum. Some people are ready for glucose. So all of the dum-dums that are being distributed right now, you see on the wrapper, just like in the image, these are mystery-flavored dum-dums. And when you get your mystery-flavored dum-dum, go ahead and unwrap it. Note the color. Mine is blue-ish. And then taste it. Still a mystery, says one person. All right, what is the flavor? Tell me what the flavor is, one at a time, more or less, of what your mystery-flavored dum-dum is. Pina colada? Ish? Cherry, maybe? Lemon lime, butterscotch? Root beer? I cannot tell. There's something lemony. What is it? Tastes like brownies. Yep. What else? Do you like your mystery flavored dum-dum? Is this some happen? Is anyone dissatisfied with their mystery? Yeah. Wincia, what is your unsatisfactory dum-dum taste like?
I love the color. It just doesn't come through in the flavor.
Loves the color, but it doesn't come through in the flavor. I like it. My earlier service dum-dum was it was buttery and sweet and like lemony all at the same time, which is weird. You don't expect a lollipop to be butter flavored. Do you guys know how mystery dum-dums are made? Do you know how they make mystery dum-dums? It's a mystery, says some smart aleck over there. So dum-dums. Dum-dums are made on one big production line, right? And there's whatever this is, like some sugar syrup thing, and then they add flavor to it. And so you've got your butterscotch dum-dums, and then your root beer dum-dums, and your lemon and lime, and possibly brownie, like all these different flavors of dum-dums. But in between, when they switch from one batch to another, they don't. empty out all the equipment and wash and clean it all out and then start a fresh batch with a fresh flavor. Instead, what they do is just in the giant vat of sugar syrup stuff, they just start adding a different flavor into it. And there's this in-between time between the two runs. And in your in-between, between the root beer and the butterscotch, all of the dum-dums that get made in the middle are mystery dum-dums. Which has many, this is a good question, why are they called dum-dums? You'll need to write that on your card for later in the service. I don't know, though. It's a fair question. But there are so many lessons from dum-dums, right? The main one, the thing that I want to share here is, in order to understand what this is, there's no way to do it in the abstract. The only way you can figure out what your mystery dum-dum tastes like, for better or for worse, is by actually tasting the thing and trying to figure it out yourself. Sometimes you encounter mystery and unknowing, not just lollipop-based, but in life. And there isn't a clear answer. And someone else's answer to that encounter doesn't actually resolve your own questions, doesn't make yours clearer. Sometimes, in fact, you can't even figure out what that mystery is, what the meaning or the message is in it. But in all of those moments, it's important still to wonder and to try and make sense of the thing, whatever it might be, and to enjoy the journey, too, as much as you can. Let's sing together as our kids head to class in just a moment.
The invitation in all of this is, as we hold these questions, as we companion each other in the mystery, is can we all get a little bit softer, a little bit braver, a little bit more tender as we sort of bear witness to the sheer number of questions around us and the holding of the fact that we just don't know. So, may this be an opening. May I be an opening. May we be an opening to love. May this be an opening. May I be an opening. May we be an opening to love. Let's sing it again. May this be an opening. May I be an opening. May we be an opening to love. May this be an opening. May I be an opening. May we be an opening to love. One more time. May this be an opening. May I be an opening. May we be an opening to love. May this be an opening. May I be an opening. May we be an opening to love.
My name is Rachel Alba. I serve as the Director of Religious Education here. And I, first off, looked up why dum-dums are called dum-dums. The creator of them just came up with it. He wanted something short and sweet that would be easily rememberable by kids. Nothing more than that. Secondly, I'm here because the person who's leading our spiritual practice this morning is Brynja, and she's one of our coming-of-age youth this year. So coming of age, for those of you who have been UUs for a while, you know of it as typically involving having a credo statement said. So a credo statement is a statement of, this is what I believe. And so traditionally, the coming of age students would write this statement of belief. The funny thing is that that's not actually something developmentally appropriate until you get to like your mid-20s. So when I sat with that and I was like, what would be a better thing for our youth to do? And what it came up with was a project that represents and expresses their spirituality and gets to share it with the community, where they are right now, however that looks like to them. And so Brynja and all of our other coming of age students have come up with a project that they've been working on all year, partially with their mentors, to develop this project, consider how it represents their spirituality, and what wisdom they want to share with the whole congregation. So I would like to invite Brynja to come up this morning and share with us a little bit of her spiritual practices so that we may all gain the wisdom she has.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm Brynja, and you have all received pieces of paper they're the little blue pieces of paper, and we now get to use them. So on each piece of paper is a quote chosen from an assortment of TV shows, movies, video games, songs, and books for their spiritual or emotional value, and specifically for the fact that you won't find them in any holy books, self-help guides, or news outlets. When you go to read the one you have selected, I want you to contemplate how it enters your mind. Do you understand it? Do you want more context? Is it complex? Funny? How does it make you feel? Do you feel angry, sad, understood, welcomed, curious, or excited? Do you picture something when you read it? Do you think of a loved one? Can you relate to it? Maybe you have to read it twice. Maybe you have to read it 5 times. After you finish, I hope you have found a small spark of meaning in your quote. And most of all, I hope you realize that even the media we consume to wind down after a long day can have a profound effect on how we view spirituality in the world we live in. Now, take a moment to contemplate the questions while you read. Thank you, and you can begin.
Take a breath with me. Ritual is an outward expression of this inward movement, in moving our bodies, in placing stones to symbolize our joys and our sorrows. In the intention that we bring to that action, we're like gardeners of our souls, of our hearts. We're tending, we're training, we're teaching ourselves to recognize that hope and suffering both are woven daily into our living. We're practicing being people who recognize that beauty and tragedy fill the world everywhere, not as some weight to balance against each other, but just that both of those things are true. And it may be that in any given week, one or the other is so much more present that it's hard to see the joy, or that things are so beautiful out there that it's difficult to remember the tragedy. In the practice, we remember them both, not just for ourselves, but for each other. That's why we do this all together, coming forward to place a stone, holding the silence of this room, as much as it would be lovely to talk to everyone on the way. Holding that silence in order to be present. You may not hear what it is that the stone stands for everyone else around you, but you know and trust that for everyone it's something. There's a weight to it. So I invite you, as you feel moved, to come forward, starting with the back part of the room, and then the sides, if you can weave your way out, and then finally the front, and to place a stone in the company of all the joys and sorrows of this community. We lift up tragedy, Tim Bailey writes, asking that we hold the lives lost and impacted by war. And Reed Bailey writes to share the happy news of the birth of his 7th great-grandchild, Callahan Reed Hubnick. Mom and baby are doing well. For all of this, for all the blessings and the concerns that we carry, we hold this space with love. Please come forward as you feel moved and bring your questions too. Bring the slips of paper, and if you're not coming up, hand yours to the person next to you to bring forward. Friends, thank you, pop-up choir, who came together and rehearsed once for a half hour this morning and sounds so good. This is our Ask Me Anything sermon, and it's important to say, if you haven't been here or been a UU for a little while, I'm answering these questions not because I have some special access or special information. I don't, and we haven't for centuries as a tradition, subscribed to the notion that ministers are like different in kind from anyone else in the room, or especially, I was about to say, especially wise or knowing. Which is to say, I'm not here because I have all the answers and I'm planning to share them, so much as I am engaged just like you are in wrestling with these questions. I heard recently of a friend, a colleague, who had turned this around, and instead of an Ask the Minister service, it was an Ask the Congregation service. Does that make you feel nervous? Good. Okay, here we go. There are so many more than I can possibly get through. When we did this last year for the questions that we couldn't make it through in the service, Rachel and Emily and I answered them, tackling a few at a time and posting them on the YouTube channel. So if you haven't yet been to the church YouTube channel, smash that like and subscribe button, right? Yeah. This is the top middle-aged thing I can say right now. Okay, here we go. Legos. What is a recent large Lego build you have completed? Thank you. This is my hobby, and I could talk about this for so long. At the retreat, which is coming in August, the 7th through the 9th, I think that the talk I give, the presentation I give this year, is going to be about building Legos and all of the lessons from creating Lego things. The last big build over the summer was a church. I took a break from church in order to build a church. There are so many exciting things about that build that I will not go into right now. But most of all, like, how do you build a dome shape? Like, Legos are not really conducive to that. I'm losing the room. All right, next question. At this time in our country, we're faced with 30 or 40% of Americans supporting the current negative political atmosphere. How can we use our service time to better focus on reassuring one another that there is a light at the end of the tunnel? I love this question. I think of a couple of things spring to mind. One is, if you go back and look at polling data from the mid and late 1930s, on what percentage of Americans supported the German government and what it was doing, it is so incredibly disheartening and obvious in retrospect how ugly it was. It was, I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was something like approaching 30%, I think. I say that not to bring us down as much as to say 30 or 40% of the country is a lot, and it doesn't mean that anything is inevitable. I don't believe that there is a light at the tunnel no matter what. I'm not an optimist in the sense that optimism says, no matter what we do and what happens, it's going to turn out okay. I don't know that. I'm not a pessimist either, that no matter what we do, it's going to turn out poorly. I love the definition instead of hope, which says that hope is the belief in the plausibility of the possible. Hope is the belief that the way things are is not inevitably how they have to be. It feels on the one hand like that is a less reassuring thing to say, but I think it's also a truer thing and a more certain thing. It's not a false hope. I think that in part the reassurance of moving our way through difficult times isn't just about what the outcome is going to be at the end of it, that we don't have hope, we don't work for justice just because we think it is all going to work out okay in the end, but that work is worth doing no matter what, that work changes us in the process, that work allows us to live lives of integrity regardless of what happens in the larger world, and that's our work to do. And along the way, we get to celebrate and feel the whole range of what it is to be people. How do I practice loving tolerance for people I dislike intensely? Oh, goodness. Right? I approach this from a couple of ways. The first is, I think the first and most important thing is to let yourself feel that feeling and recognize that that's actually what's going on inside you. Instead of pretending, oh no, I don't actually feel that way. Instead of coming in with all of this judgment that's like, I really dislike this person, and therefore I am terrible. Like, let's perform and smile our way through this. I think the first thing is just to let yourself feel the feeling and let that go. Sometimes the intensity of dislike, like any other feeling, passes through in about 90 seconds. Sometimes it gets worse in 90 seconds of conversation. I think the second thing is it's okay to have boundaries. It's okay not to engage with them. It's okay to say to your loved ones, I'm actually not going to talk about politics today. And just let that be the end of the conversation. It's okay to excuse yourself from those conversations. I think the question is well stated. How do I practice loving tolerance? It's not that you're supposed to be best friends with everyone. It's not that you're supposed to treat everyone as if they are safe people to be honest and vulnerable with. They're not all. Many years ago, I asked this question of a mentor, and he told me, you should pray for them. You should pray as fiercely and authentically, even if you have no prayer practice whatsoever, he told me then, you should pray for their well-being. Because it will shift that relationship, even if you don't want it to or expect it to. He said, pray for them every day. I said I'd try it as an experiment. And it worked. It didn't make me like them. But it gave room for that sense of loving tolerance. That's a really sweet question. I'm not going to answer. What do you do when there is no answer to your question? I mean, most questions don't really have answers. School did not set us up for the real world in that sense. I think about the poet Rilke says something to the effect of learn to love the questions. Love them like a locked room whose key you've lost. Love them like a distant lover you haven't seen in decades. Love the questions themselves as the questions. Some days, that is a beautiful, encouraging response. Some days, that is extremely frustrating, Rilke. How do you know so much about dum-dums? How people preached before Wikipedia, I am not sure. Yeah, there's a lot of information out there about dum-dums. We also have so many dum-dums. Please eat them. Nobody likes them. Like, please, if you have people who like them, take them with you. What great mystery have you encountered? Man. Gosh, this is one to ask each other in coffee hour after the service. Like, I mean that genuinely. I am so much more curious about your answers than my own. I remember at what is probably the absolute, just like rock bottom lowest point in my life, being unconditionally extended a sense of love and belonging. That I didn't do anything to earn, that I didn't achieve my way into, that I didn't. One definition of grace is unearned goodness, something that just shows up in your life, not through any doing of your own whatsoever. I remember experiencing that, and it was transformative. From time to time, I've also had the experience in silence. There's a line in an Ursula K. Le Guin book where she talks about a sort of a hermit out in the woods listening for the word that trees make as they move in the wind. What have you as staff been doing during services to break or combat the expectation of perfectionism in our community? You see it every week. Breaking that, no. I think the first thing in services, and I think of this, we talk about this as a staff team, we talk about this with worship leaders, is that I sort of think that the whole room, that part of what you all cue off in a service is what happens when something goes wrong. When something is missing, when we skip a thing, when the words get jumbled up, the person at the microphone gets to model to the whole community. I think, like, what do we get to do with that? I tell worship leaders, like, you don't get all anxious and, oh no, something's gone wrong, and I feel that something's gone wrong, and now you all should also feel anxious that something has gone wrong. Like, instead, there's the sense of, like, yeah, of course, everything's going wrong all the time. It's like what it is to be a person. Nothing goes perfectly. I think, too, of singing together. I think of, like, that practice of singing together with no music, where you don't know the tune before you show up that morning, and this invitation and exhortation that, like, if you can produce sound with your body, you can join in that singing, even if you don't think that you're a singer. And it's not that I love the technically amazing stuff that happens in the music too from time to time, but that quality of community singing, of joining in and making something together, it's gloriously imperfect. It wouldn't feel the same as it did if everyone was doing it perfectly. What's one of your favorite you jokes? Comes to mind right now. Guy gets rescued from a desert island after living there for 15 years by himself, abandoned, one of these like Robinson Crusoe type of situations. And the camera crew comes in and he shows them around. This is where I fish, this is my house, and this is the church. And this guy has made like a church out of palm leaves and like created an altar, figured out woodworking enough to make it, created some scripture, like a holy book out of leaves that have been dried and carefully painted, and the camera crew is astounded by this and can't believe what they're seeing. It's like, how this? And he says, no, this is, forget about this. Let's come to the other side of the island where he shows them an even more amazing church that is bigger and more glorious. And the camera crew says, why are you showing us two churches? And he says, whoa, this is the church I belong to. That's the one I used to go to. It's not exactly a you joke, but it's adjacent. What inspired you to become a minister? I think I fell in love with meaning making. In that sense, first I fell in love with the study of religion and the ideas and the stories and the philosophy, and then I realized what I cared about even more than sort of the facts or the constellation of ideas was what do all of us do with that? And I don't just mean like me personally, how do I make sense of it, but to get to invite people into that meaning making, into wrestling with the questions, it's so beautiful to me. These are such good questions that I'm not going to answer all right now. Dear David, if you care to, with the building being delayed, when will you do sabbatical? That is so thoughtful of a question. I was planning to take sabbatical, some time away for rest and recharge this spring, but because when construction starts in August, we'll be out of the building for 3 to 5 months. And in fact, we'll be out of this room and the sky room. We'll be across I called it a ditch at the early start. They corrected me. It is a canal. On the far side of the canal at Eisenhower Elementary, we'll be in the gym there on Sunday mornings at 9 and 11 for the 3 to 5 months that we have to be out of this space. And it just seemed to me that it would be like mean to leave immediately before we had to leave the building and figure out, like, where is everything in the storeroom going? Where will we meet for worship? So I'll take sabbatical next spring. We'll get back into this building again, December, January, something like that. And maybe this time next year, I'll be on sabbatical. Construction itself, we're told will be 18 months, so expect 2 years or more. So there'll be plenty of time to take sabbatical while construction is going on. I'm sorry, I see Gary, who heads that team, is in the room. No, 18 months, 18 months. Have you ever eaten frogs, turtles, or insects? Have you ever eaten frogs, turtles, or insects? I have eaten frogs. They're fine, yeah. I've not eaten turtles. Yeah, poor turtles. I don't know why I feel affection for turtles. I think I've eaten insects. I must have. I've accidentally eaten them for sure. All right, let's do one or two more. Oh, these are so good, but I'm not gonna. Why not? Says this. You tell me. How to deal with our hidden human parts, our shadows, the things that we feel and think but try to hide from ourselves and each other. I think that so much of the work of being a person in the world is the work of integration, of putting these parts of ourselves back together again. I think sometimes we take our shadow side and there's so much judgment and negativity associated with that you sort of shut that away in some part of yourself and try never to engage it, which of course is the way to give it the most power over you, is by trying not to see it and not engage with it. I was reading this week some Pema Chodron, the Buddhist monk, who talks about cultivating a quality of intense compassion for ourselves. This idea that before we can even do compassion for others, we have to have that unconditionally for ourselves. I think that's the first step in engaging with the shadow side. This kind of knowing that your worst day doesn't define who you are. Your worst impulse is not somehow actually what you're about, but that there are all of these parts, and then there's a kind of gentleness of you towards yourself that gives you the strength to be able to face it. There's a particular term for that in Buddhism I'm forgetting right now. I think there's a piece of that too, that sense of grace or assurance in the Christian tradition. The Universalists would say there's this unconditional love from God, the 19th century Universalists would say. And who are you to disagree with it? Who are you to know better, they would say, than God does, that you are lovable? Not that you don't need any work, but that You are beloved exactly as you are, and y'all need some work. Me too. It's what it is to be a person. All right, last one, and then more on the YouTube channel. Oh, this feels so alive. How do we take on a manageable amount of what the world needs us to do without also failing to bear witness to everything that deserves our attention? It makes me think again in Buddhist practice, the bodhisattva vow, this idea of the vow that you take to work for liberation is sentient beings are numberless. I vow to liberate them all. Which works better when you have an endless cycle of rebirth, right? You've got the timeline to tackle that one. It's tough when there's just one life at a time. I think there's a sort of a living into the paradox of it, or at least I don't know the one neat answer. The suffering of the world, is endless. And there's an infinite number of lifetimes to spend witnessing it deserving suffering, suffering that deserves to be witnessed and held and accompanied and transformed. But I think sometimes also of the pragmatists, the early 20th century Unitarian pragmatists who just sort of said, well, where are you now and what can you do right now? I think of Arthur Ashe, the activist and the tennis player. I go back often to his line, which says, start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. And that is enough, that it's okay, that it is enough to do that. Goodness, there was a turn of the century Unitarian who would say, I won't let the everything that I can't do stop me from doing the something that I can. But there's also a way in which all of those are just affirming the question, not answering it. I think in part the full answer is to know that you're not doing it alone. That the way change works, the way justice works, and the way witness works is in community. That you're not failing because you aren't doing it perfectly. Sometimes Terry and I would joke to each other, well, anything less than perfection is failure. No. But still, that sometimes becomes the thing running inside your own head. A piece of the answer to that, too, is to be all of who you are, and the compassionate part that sees and responds to the brokenness of the world is a central and a crucial part, but also that's not all of who you are. That's not all the relationship that you have. And to pay attention and take seriously the joy and the beauty and the possibility, to take seriously the needs of your own body and the commitments and relationships that you have. Sometimes, there's that line of someone saying to Jesus, why are you anointing yourself with oil when there are poor people who need to be fed? And he says, the poor will always be with you. And you can read that on the one hand as an extremely cynical take, right? He could have done something and he didn't. Or you can also read that at the same time that our lives also need celebration and joy. They need to care for the body too. That's part of what it takes to be able to do the work and show up to each other for a whole life, not just relentlessly burn out in the process. There are so many questions remaining. Actually, there are many more remaining even than we've gotten through. And in the months and the year ahead, we'll answer some of these on the YouTube channel. But I think I want to close by saying, I don't know that the answers that I have for these questions are any better than the answers that you have for these questions. I don't think that I have access to some special insight or source. I think instead that all of these are the questions for all of us. That the wrestling with them, the learning to love the questions, the sometimes living in the unknowing for years or decades, as if they're a locked room where you've lost the key, as if they're a lover from decades past on a far distant continent. That's all of our essential work today and every day. Just like the dum-dums and trying to figure out what flavor is this exactly, there's no way that someone else's answers work for you entirely. You have to do that work yourself, too, of trying to figure it out. And it helps to compare notes and to compare stories, to compare dum-dums in this increasingly strained analogy. But that's the work, silly and serious both. Amen.
Will you rise in body or in spirit? We get to do a little bit of body percussion and sing together. It goes pat, clap, swishy, swishy, swishy. I was planted in the darkness. 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 One more time. I was planted in the darkness. I was planted in the darkness. I feel the dark. I feel the dark. It brings me life. I feel the dark. It brings me life. I can grow. I can grow in the darkness. I can grow in the darkness. Second time. I can grow in the darkness. I can grow in the darkness. Third time. I can grow in the darkness. I can grow in the darkness. Fourth time. I can grow in the darkness. I can grow in the darkness. I feel the dark. I feel the dark. It brings me life. Last time. I feel the dark. It brings me life. Good job.
Each week, we split our collection plate with local nonprofits doing tangible work to make the world a better place. At this point, I would like to introduce Lisa Moreno, if you'd like to come up. She is the executive director of El Comité de Longmont, our plate partner, or recipient, I should say, this month. Excuse me. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, everybody. I think we're afternoon now. No, morning still. So I was told that I'm supposed to talk for 3 minutes, and I'm not sure it's actually possible for me to share all the information with you that I've been told you want and that I want to share in 3 minutes. So I guess I want to ask for the grace of 5, and I'm going to try and smush it all in. So I'm the executive director of El Comité. My name is Lisa Moreno. I've been there for 2 years. My previous life before this job was, I got my start in politics and policy at a very young age, working as legislative staff for Pat Schroeder in D.C. I was a lobbyist in D.C. For Schroeder, I wrote the Violence Against Women Act, Open Combat Jobs for Women, in the day when Congress worked. It was a different time. I'm also a master's level social worker, and here in Boulder County, I've been the VP of programs at the Community Foundation Boulder County, and for the county itself, wrote the behavioral health roadmap before this job. So I bring all of those skills to this job, and El Comité is a really important, trusted community organization, and it's tiny, so there's a lot of people that don't know about it. It's been around for 45 years. And it was founded in Longmont in 1980 after a police shooting of 2 Chicano men on Main Street over a verbal altercation. And the Latino leaders and community themselves came together and decided to actually begin to negotiate with the city and were coached by the Department of Justice Community Services Division to create an organization so that there was an energetic space to hold and drive the work, and that became El Comité. And their whole goal was coming together to make sure that this type of event, this tragedy, would never happen again in Longmont, that Longmont would be a different place. And Longmont is a really different place now, and it's not that El Comité did all of that work, but El Comité's existence and the work they have been doing over the decades made the space for a lot of other organizations and other parts of the Latino community to come together and also contribute to the change. So we do 4 things at El Comité, and these are things that the organization has historically done since its start. And one is we have 4, we call them case managers, and resource navigators. We have 3. They're bilingual, bicultural folks who literally help people solve problems regardless of what it is. Whatever people come to us with, our case managers help them resolve. And it just runs the gamut. They're generalists. They help people deal with social security issues, open businesses, close businesses, get married, get divorced, set up child support payments, collect child support payments. It just runs a gamut. I once helped a guy figure out why he was paying $300 a month when he had solar panels. Like, it just really is anything. We also have always helped people access attorneys affordably and make sure that they have the support of attorneys to address legal issues. We historically did that by having local attorneys offer pro bono time for consults in our office. We always had immigration attorneys, a civil attorney, and criminal defense attorneys. We still have all of those services in our office. We also offer access to a family law attorney these days. We also have always had a small adult education program. We offer 2 levels of English as a second language. It's $25 for a 5-week session, and the classes meet twice a week. We have free GED and citizenship test prep. And then we have always done a ton of community outreach, community education. Historically, that was included a big old outside health fair, which we did in 24 and chose not to do in 25. And starting in 2025, all of our community outreach focused on providing regular Know Your Rights workshops and family emergency preparedness workshops. So in this current environment, a lot of the things that came up in the questions, right, or at least I can read into the questions based on my daily work, it's important to understand that there have been 654 changes to immigration law and policy since January 20th, 2025. And it isn't about it isn't about going after the worst of the worst and the criminals. It has literally been about de-documenting people with status and making it harder for normal process like refugees and asylum to function. It's also been limiting people's ability to get out of detention if they are detained, and so people are held longer. And all of that is so that the private prisons can make more money. We have one private prison, one detention center here in Colorado in Aurora right now, Geo Detention Center, and they'll soon, within the next weeks or month, opening one in Hudson, which is really close to us. There's also a small holding facility that's always been around in Frederick, and a check-in location for folks with ankle monitors in Firestone. And that is run by BI, which is an arm of GEO, which runs the detention center in Aurora and will be running Hudson. In addition, as you all know, in HR 1, there were tens of billions of dollars were invested in, of our money, were invested in immigration enforcement, detention, and deportation. And ICE is now, I know that this is not a militaristic crowd, but just to give you some perspective, ICE is now significantly better funded than the United States Marine Corps. So what we're seeing locally is increasing numbers of people detained. The detention is still, it looks like it's still fairly targeted. They aren't walking down the street and grabbing random brown people necessarily. We in our office are seeing on average, about 8 new people a month who are walking in or calling us and saying someone in their family or community has been detained. And then we're also seeing an increase of individuals, of our participants, who are facing just general financial need. Either they've had no work, or the work is diminished, or they've gotten ill, or had some sort of event that means that they needed help with rent and food and other things. And then we're also seeing Longmont has always had a pretty high rate of wage theft, where people do some sort of work, usually a subcontractor, and then the person they did the work for refuses to pay them. We're seeing a lot more of it, seeing that increasing as well. So in response in our services, we have we hired a staff immigration attorney. So as an employee in our office, we now have an immigration attorney full-time. And the reason that I prioritized this, and he started in October of last year, was because I can look across the county and say, if you are poor, which the majority of the 3,000 people we serve every year are, there is very few options for you to find someone to represent you in immigration court or in detention, because it starts at about, $250 to $300 an hour for that type of immigration defense. So I knew that the only places that folks in Boulder County or even Carbon Valley, which is just the west side of Weld on the county line, that people were going to be able to go was to the CU Immigration Defense Clinic, which doesn't take a ton of cases, and at the time only had one attorney. They now have 2 attorneys, so it's a little bit bigger program, but they take cases from across the state. So there's no guarantee that that growth necessarily benefits our community. And I knew that they just weren't going to have representation. And the only way really to be successful in our immigration system is with representation. And our immigration system is not like criminal law. You don't get a public defender. It's a pay-to-play game. So our attorney started in October. And we are already at the point where we're going to have to focus his services almost exclusively on defensive cases. That means people who need to adjust status, renew green cards or work permits, we're going to have to find other places for them to go. I suspect that within 9 months to a year, we're going to be talking about looking for another attorney. And right now, we're trying to figure out how and who to find to put a paralegal on the team. We're also seeing an increased request for direct assistance, and we in our office had a grant last year for direct assistance, and we've written that in the direct assistance to community members in need into our budget for this year. And then our community education continues to be completely focused on know your rights and family emergency preparedness. There's am I doing it? I'm close. There's like the time. There's a lot of expertise in your own congregation on all of these issues. Can I point you out? Can I out you? Mary Jo Highland is a member of your congregation, and she is an immigration attorney with the Meyer Law Group, and she's a board member for El Comité. Our staff attorney, Charles Vernon, also is connected to your congregation, and his wife, Cindy Schlosser, is a regular member of your service. And Cindy works for the Rocky Mountain Immigrant Advocacy Network and runs all of their social work. So there is a lot of expertise about all these questions here in your own community for you to continue to learn from. And we are our goal in all of this is to stick to what we were created to do, to make Longmont and, let me back up, what our service area is, in spite of Longmont being in our name and me saying Longmont a million times up here, we serve anybody from Boulder County and Western Weld. That's for our legal services and for our direct assistance. For our case management, we'll serve anybody that contacts us from anywhere, whether they come in or call. So our goal in all of this, as we keep marching forward, is to be nimble and responsive. And for us to be nimble and responsive, that means I need my staff paid and our financial needs met, right? And then also I'm going to have to start fundraising for additional funds to keep the legal services growing. There's probably no way that we can ever pay for enough attorneys to meet the whole need should we end up here in Colorado in the situation of Minnesota or Chicago or Portland. But I think it's really important to walk with as many people as we can so that they don't have to do that system alone. And anybody that we can help is worth it. So we will keep doing all the work that we can. Everybody always has questions of how can I help? And I'm gonna stretch that dum-dum analogy a little bit more. It's a little bit hard to tell non-Spanish speakers how they can help in this moment, and that's because we're in that mystery dum-dum phase where we don't really know what's happening or what will happen or what it's going to look like here when they begin to turn up the enforcement to a higher level. So we really don't know yet where and how to use the general allied community effectively. That said, there is an IPT, an immigrant protection team, or an immigrant partnership team that is in existence in Boulder that's doing a pretty good job of keeping people trained and getting people ready for the point at which they're going to be needed even more. I have a little QR code for a volunteer sign-in list, and if you want to put your name in there, we will reach out to you and get you connected to those folks. Things that I need, and I need help with fundraising for my office. If anybody is interested in hosting a house party for us, I would come and speak, and you would invite, 20 to 40 of your friends and neighbors, and we then let's share the load of fundraising to keep all of these services going.
And you'll be in there during coffee hour, right?
I will be there for a little while, and then I have to run to a training. I will be there as long as I can. Mostly, I just want to thank you all for thinking of us, for thinking of the community that we serve, and for caring.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Phew, it was hard to listen to that. Hard to take it all in. Do I have a microphone here? Yeah. Okay, great. Oh, there's a cell phone lost. Looks. I'll put it in the office if nobody comes up after the service.
Ray, we would just share why don't we share the closing invitations and sing?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead? Oh, okay, right. So, you mean start right here? I think that makes sense, yeah. Okay, so we're going to do the invitations and the closing, all right? And on the invitations, before I close, I have a few invitations. And if you're newish and want to explore the community more deeply, from 12:30 to 2, which is not here there yet, in the Emerson Room in our Finding Yourself at UUCB new member class with lunch provided. You're warmly welcome, even without an RSVP. And also at 12:30, in the back of the room, the LGBTQIA plus connection group meets. Somebody will find out what all the letters mean, but I know most of them. All are welcome. And finally, we're in the closing weeks of our capital campaign, an annual campaign fundraising. We're on track and things are looking very positive, but if you haven't yet turned in a pledge card, and I haven't, now is the time. I'm in trouble. He's still like, it'll be done today. So anyway, will you rise in body and spirit, or in spirit, as we close in our song, Our Love Surrounds You.
Our love surrounds you. Here joy has found you. Let hope abound freely. Go in peace. Let's do that again. Our love surrounds you. Here joy has found you. Let hope abound freely. Go in peace. One more time. Our love surrounds you. Here joy has found you. Let hope abound freely. Go in peace. Our worship ends and our service begins. Go in peace.